Here's the big story from Reuters.com. Trump says he will end all taxes on overtime. I love where we're going. Trump says no taxes on tips. I agree. Kamala Harris comes out and says, oh, yeah, no taxes on tips, too. So Trump tries to undercut her by saying, oh, yeah, no taxes on overtime. She's going to have to come out and entertain the same policy. Trump's then going to come out and say 20% off taxes. We are looking at market competition towards the end of taxation. Is he going to, I wonder if he's going to keep one-upping Kamala, or she's trying to copy him, so he keeps one-upping her until he gets to the point where he goes, okay, fine, flat tax. Flat sales tax, no income tax. That's where we're going.
No, I love where this is going. It's eventually going to have to get to that point where abolish the federal income tax or abolish the IRS. I think these sound like great ideas, and I think we're on that path.
At a rally, he said, quote, as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime. Your overtime hours will be tax-free. That's the right move.
It is. That's
Absolutely.
incredible.
But do you think Kamala Harris will now rip this policy off?
Yep.
I think that's her signature move right now. And it's interesting because she in no way is ever setting the trend. He is always leading. She is always following. That should tell you right now, for someone who took forever to release her policies, she should really just admit that she will do whatever Donald Trump tells her to.
Yeah. Also, he wants to get rid of tax on Social Security, too, right? That was another. I saw a super chat already.
He's talked about that before, I think.
So these are, while you're pulling that up, I imagine this is overtime. This is just income tax. No more income tax on your overtime. Not that the company doesn't have to pay payroll tax or anything.
This is true. This is from a few days ago, actually. Trump also promised to end taxes on Social Security. I knew I'd seen it somewhere.
Jeez.
And it makes sense. It's insane to tax Social Security.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
Unemployment, too. You pay taxes to make sure that you get to receive unemployment. And then when you receive your unemployment, you're supposed to pay taxes on that again, on something you've already paid taxes on to get. Doesn't make sense. It's a double dip.
Agreed. It makes no sense. So Trump is leading the charge on getting rid of people's taxes. And I think it's fairly obvious when you cut taxes, the economy improves. Generally speaking.
Yeah. I think it's what voters need to hear right now, that there is a potential for relief to come because so many people are struggling economically, struggling to keep up with inflation, and also to keep up with the demoralization, right? If you feel like you're being told by the government, oh, but buying power is up, but you're saying, well, I am still paying a ton for everything and it seems to only be getting worse. Hearing that someone actually wants to make your life easier is what you need.
I think this would cost the government a bunch of money because they're not going to be taking in income tax on overtime, but it would save the citizens a lot of money, which then could incentivize them to spend it in other realms where they're going to be putting the money back into the government through other forms of taxation. I guess that's the plan. I don't know what his numbers are and how much he intends for the government to lose in the immediate and then recoup in the long run.
I can just tell you this, that I used to have to work overtime all the time. So working out of O'Hare, you had what's called mandatory overtime. So as part of the union contracts, if you're working there was the morning shift and the night shift. So this is ramp, this is loading planes, pushing back planes, things like that. You get in at 1:30, you're out by 10. But if your plane is delayed, you have no choice. You are required by your contract to stay. We call it mandatory overtime. And some people like it. Most people hated it. And that's why we hated working the night shift. But the morning shift was 5:30 until 1. So for a lot of people, it's like, it's pretty brutal to have to choose 5:30 in the morning. If you want to work 1:30 and then work tonight, you're going to get hit with overtime. I got to tell you, if I had been working and Trump came out and said this, I'd have been like, that right there, nothing else matters. That got my vote.
Trump is consistently proving that he's the change candidate in this race.
Absolutely.
And it also, I think, reaffirms that he is the leader of the Republican Party because, Trump comes out with the brilliant policy followed by members of Congress introducing legislation almost immediately. I think when President Trump first said no tax on tips, Congressman Matt Gaetz introduced legislation that followed it immediately with the Social Security I think it was Congressman Thomas Massey introduced the Senior Citizens Tax Elimination Act, so that there is an elimination of the unjust double tax, which Congresswoman Boebert's also a co-sponsor on. And so it's great to see that President Trump leads the charge. We have members of Congress backing him up, and neocons in shambles.
I got a question about this. Is it no tax on just because of overtime, time and a half? It's basically what you're getting, time and a half. So you get paid $10 an hour. You're going to be getting paid $15 for your overtime hours. Is this just tax free on those extra $5 on that extra 50%, or is this
tax free on every 15?
Wow.
Yeah, because he said overtime hours. He didn't say overtime pay. So imagine this: it's at this point now. I think I'd be interested to check in with my old jobs and see how much they're paying now. Because when I was there, it was like $10 an hour. You were loading planes, you're getting $10 an hour. You do overtime, you get 15. But who cares? Because they're like, but you're getting taxed on a percentage. So it's just everybody rolls their eyes like, thank you for the extra $10 to make it so I can't get home and go to bed. And I got to wake up in the morning. And what I would add is when I worked at the airport, I like to do 4 shifts in 2 days. Get in at 5:30, leave by 10. Be there the whole day, because then you can get as many hours as you can in, and then you have the rest of the week for whatever other projects you're working on, whatever you want to do. But you always get hit with that mandatory overtime. If you're getting $10 an hour, and then you're only taking home 8, but now they say, but don't worry, if you work overtime, you're going to be getting basically double your pay, because now the whole 15 is not going to be taxed at all. People are going to be begging for overtime. It's a good point, because Trump says the people who work overtime, some of our hardest workers, but this is going to incentivize overtime. That's great for the economy. People can be working more. Now, alternatively, it could be bad. You know why it could be bad? Because now there are going to be companies that say, why hire another staffer? If maybe it's $10 an hour for employee A, but I need someone who can work a few hours at the end of the day. I got to hire another employee $10 an hour. Whoa. I just have one employee work extra overtime, and he's going to make more money than if I paid him anyway. So it could have a perverse incentive where companies actually want to hire less because people are willing to work even longer.
Yeah. I think you really want to incentivize more employees is what you want.
And a lot of companies, from what I know, are having trouble hiring. One of the reasons they have to ask for extra overtime right now from current workers is that they do not have people applying to fill openings that they have. So while it could incentivize them to just continue to extend overtime hours for already overtime workers, I think you might see people who are not that interested in going to the job market right now start applying with more vigor. Because, if you are able to say, okay, I'm going to work this many hours a week, but all of my overtime is actually going to be tax-free, you ultimately earn a lot more in the long term over the course of a year. And I think people want that right now.
Also, I'm wondering about people now that are on salaries, and if they're going to end up feeling like they're getting screwed. Now they're like,
it'd be interesting if people start calculating it's better to work hourly than to earn, whatever the salary wage is, because I know a lot of hourly workers who earn more than other friends who have salary jobs, just because the hourly offers more benefits.
And the overtime, like you don't get overtime with salary.
Overtime, flex time, you can sometimes pick up more shifts. Like with your salary, this is what you're earning and that's it.
Yeah, I want to see this proposal somehow incentivize more workers as well. So like the company, although the income is going to be no income tax on overtime, the company maybe has less payroll tax if they have more employees, or like a diminishing return on their payroll taxes the more employees that they bring in, and keep under the overtime threshold, because the government might be like, well, we're going to receive more money from your company if you have 2 employees working 40 hours than if you have 1 employee working 80. Mm-hmm. So we're going to incentivize you through tax reduction to hire more employees.
Interesting. It's possible. I mean, this is a challenge with any kind of announcement of a policy like this. The details are not yet clear, and part of that is because, unless it's done through executive action, it's going to have to be done through Congress, and that's always sort of a deal-making process. I feel like Joel can attest to this. If there were a bill that said we don't want to tax overtime anymore, somebody would tack on some kind of irrelevant proposal.
How did it work the last time when you said that they were doing the Social Security? They didn't want to tax Social Security, or what was it they wanted?
Well, as of now, it's just a bill that's been introduced by Thomas Massey. So I'm not sure if it's gone through a committee vote or if it goes straight to the House floor. There's a few different procedures, but I know that as of now, it's just a bill that's been introduced.
Just a single issue bill?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so they could do that with something like this as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure what appropriate committee it would have to go through. But, when you introduce a bill and then put it through committee, that alone puts the members on on their heels on how they're going to vote publicly. And so sometimes they don't want to do that. Sometimes they do some funny business to make sure that bill doesn't see the light of day, or they make some technicalities.
But could you imagine being whatever committee member and then having to go back to your district and be like, oh, well, I'm on the committee for this thing, and we got sent a bill that meant that overtime hours wouldn't have been taxed, and I voted against it. I didn't want it to reach the rest of the chamber. Like, that doesn't seem like it would bode well. I can't think of a district in America where people would be like, we don't care about that issue at all. I think most Americans would be impacted by this.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see it put up for a vote. We'll have to stay watching them closely.
It's just hard. Like, how would you message on the opposite of that? It would just be like, I could have helped overtime workers, and instead I chose not to.
Yep.
Like,
well, that's why they love their poison pills.
The argument would be like it's going to bankrupt this government program, which is going to end up costing seniors their Social Security because we're not taking enough income tax now because we're losing it to this free
Social
money.
Security's going to die anyway, so that one doesn't inspire me, at least. I'll never get probably Joel too will never get Social Security, so it's a dying institution for most Americans. Current seniors, I feel awful for them, right? They shouldn't be double taxed on Social Security, but it's not an institution that's sustainable. So I think if you tell younger voters, oh, well, it could potentially harm Social Security, they'd be like, well, what's new?
Well, if there's another presidential debate, I'd love to see how Kamala would respond to that.
There's got to be another debate. We'll
see.
Trump, what is he doing? He's got to go for it, and he's got to chill out and just relax and talk about stuff like this. Like, this is the kind of stuff he should have brought up in the debate. No tax on overtime. Like, control the debate with the comment, with the statement.
I'd love to. That's a good point. I'd love to be in a presidential debate so I can just be like, I want to abolish Social Security. Just there you go. I will touch it, and I will take from it, and I will shut it down.
So would you just like scale it out, just phase it out over the next 20 years or something?
Yep. It was a bad idea, and we can clearly see why it was a bad idea. It takes 4 workers to sustain 1 recipient. And so what we're basically saying is we should sacrifice the young for the sake of the old. That is a ridiculous thing for society.
Yeah, on its face, it's like I'm going to pay in taxes and insurance or whatever into this insurance program, and then when I retire, I'm going to recollect all that as my retirement. But they don't account for the inflation and the reduction of value of the money. Well, the common man doesn't understand. If I put $10,000 in over the course of 40 years, in 40 years, that's probably going to be worth about $2,000.
It was a game where they decided, look, population's expanding, right? So let's just, instead of having to save for retirement or have a family to take care of us, let's just make the expanding generations pay for it. Sooner or later, they must have been assuming at the time, like, look, people are going to keep having kids. So long as they have 3 kids, we got nothing to worry about. And now they're having 1.6 kids. And now they're like, okay, it's going to implode. And all these politicians are like, I will not touch your Social Security because I don't want to lose the senior vote in the most important voting block. It's okay. So older people are going to keep voting to take from the young, while young people struggle to buy homes and get off the ground. And the older voters are going to be like, don't care. I want it. It's mine. And I'm going to keep voting for it. And The Simpsons made the joke in like 1992 when Abe Simpson is making fun of people. I think he's making fun of young people being like good for nothing. So you just want everything for free. Then he runs into the Social Security office and goes, I'm old. Give me it. I deserve it. It's mine. It's like that's how I feel about it.
It's sad to think about elderly people going bankrupt and living on the street, like, because they don't have any income at all.
And this is a perverse system that told people, don't have a family, don't have kids. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Government will pay for it. We will, by force, make young people pay the bills of people who didn't have families. That's insane.
I love this idea of seeing you on the presidential debate stage. If we ever saw a potential president pool, who would be your running mate?
You wouldn't see a president. If I ever had a campaign, it would be intentionally just to say things that are unpopular, but I think people need to hear.
Yeah, but that's that Warren Beatty movie, and he won. What was that movie called? I don't remember.
I get the whole youth vote. They're like, how much money do we get back? I'll be like, well, I guess if we eliminate Social Security, you're going to get back, what, 7 to 12%.
You wouldn't have a VP?
It'd have to be AOC, dude.
Well, he's got to vet a bunch of candidates. You don't know who's trendy at the time.
I don't want to be president at all, so I can't even think of who a VP
Who could
would
skate
be.
the best?
If the whole point is just sending messages that are disruptive, Michael Malice is always the go-to as someone we need in a position of like press authority. So press secretary was great for the Libertarian Party.
It crossed my mind when I was watching that debate that if you were, telling you this before the show, if you had been on stage in Trump's position instead of him, and you were just able to actually explain some of the problems, like when Kamala was like, they were like, Trump, why didn't you vote for her border bill that put all these extra border agents on the border? And he ended up just defending his rallies and being like, people don't leave my rallies. I don't even want, hold on, people don't ever leave my rally. Like, dude,
she got him. She goaded him.
Let's literally talk about why you voted against, or why you pushed to get this vote shot down to get all these border agents in there, because it was going to let more illegal immigrants come across every day or every month or whatever.
Here's my answer. Well, with all due respect, it's not that I control Congress or the Senate. I simply made a few phone calls to members of Congress and asked them what they had thought about it, and I gave them my opinion. And my opinion was that this bill actually codified an increase in unchecked, unvetted border crossings. And I made phone calls to members of Congress and asked them, why are they calling it a border security bill if it's going to bring more people in? I mean, if it's bringing more people in, Kamala's, the Biden administration, we shouldn't be supporting this. That's simple. The American people want a border security bill that's going to restrict and reduce the amount of illegal immigrants, and that's it.
You guys remember off the top of your head how many more immigrants it was going to allow in every month?
It was like thousands per day or something. It
was 5,000 illegals every day.
And it was going up. That many more people were just going to be allowed.
It was an amnesty bill. It wasn't a security bill.
No, it was a total amnesty bill.
And the problem is politicians, and I think, look, Trump can do whatever he wants. You guys can insult me and tell me I'm wrong all day next. I ain't never going to run for office. In my opinion, however, which I am entitled to, I think the problem with a lot of politicians is they'd say something like, that was an amnesty bill. That would have granted, instead of just saying, well, I wouldn't characterize it as me shutting the bill down. I mean, I'm a private citizen. I was calling a few people and asking them their thoughts. But I think the problem with the bill is that it created a provision. The provision increased the amount of illegal immigrants that they were going to allow in every day. The number should be 0. If you come to this country, you got to come in legally. That means you come to our borders, you come to our embassies, you come to our consulates, you fill out the paperwork. Their border security bill is what they called it, but it allowed up to 5,000 illegal immigrants to cross the border without being vetted at all, and they called that a reduction. So let me just put it this way.
Well, also, Kamala Harris said on the debate stage that he killed the bill because of politics. They didn't want to give him a win, but it wasn't because of politics. It was because of policy.
If we want 0 people crossing our border illegally, and we have 10,000 people crossing, and you come to me and say, let's set the number at 5,000, I'm going to say, no, the number is 0. Mm-hmm. And Kamala's bill was 5,000.
Kamala was basically asking America, like if you were a city, to say, we're okay with, 15% violent crime every year.
Right.
Like that's the strangest thing. It was saying a certain amount is okay, and I don't think that's what any American would want. That's why the bill is bad. You can call it a border security bill every single day, but the reality is it was okaying a certain amount of crime in America at a time when Americans, one of their top issues is crime.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.